My name is Ethan, and at 34, I'd built a reputation as the go-to contractor in Mapleton, a sleepy coastal town in Oregon where the rain falls more often than not. I'm not particularly special, just a guy with calloused hands, a reliable truck, and an honest approach to fixing things. After my divorce 3 years ago, I'd thrown myself into work, finding comfort in the predictability of hammer and nail. My days followed a simple pattern. Coffee at sunrise, work until sunset, occasional beers with friends, repeat. It wasn't exciting, but it was safe. And after having my heart shattered, safe felt good enough. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The call came in on a Thursday morning. A woman named Sofia Reeves needed emergency roof repairs before the next big storm hit. Her voice on the phone was calm but urgent, with a slight accent I couldn't quite place. "It's getting worse by the hour," she explained. "The ceiling in my studio is already showing water damage." I wasn't looking for new clients. My schedule was packed with regular customers, but something in her voice made me rearrange my day. "I can be there by noon," I promised, jotting down the address she gave me. The house sat on Harborview Drive, an eclectic street with homes that ranged from historic Victorians to modern constructions. Sofia's place was somewhere in between, a 1970s split level with large windows and weathered blue siding that had seen better days. The front yard was wild with native plants rather than manicured grass, and ceramic wind chimes hung from the porch ceiling, creating a haunting melody in the coastal breeze. I was assessing the roof situation from my truck when the front door opened. I expected someone older, maybe retired, based on the house and neighborhood. Instead, there stood Sofia, tall, with curly dark hair streaked with silver, dressed in paint-splattered overalls. She didn't look like anyone I'd met before, with an intensity in her eyes that seemed to cut through the rain. "You must be Ethan," she called out, waving me over. "Come inside before you drown out there." The interior of Sofia's house was even more surprising than she was. Every wall covered with paintings, some finished, others works in progress. The furniture was mismatched but somehow cohesive, with books stacked in precarious towers and pottery displayed on virtually every surface. It smelled of turpentine, fresh bread, and something spicy I couldn't identify. "The leak's upstairs," she explained, leading me through the artistic chaos. "Right above my studio, of course. The universe has a twisted sense of humor." I followed her up a narrow staircase, noting the worn carpet and the dozens of framed photographs lining the wall. Sofia in various locations around the world, often with groups of children, sometimes alone in front of breathtaking landscapes. The upstairs ceiling was indeed in rough shape. A spreading water stain and buckling drywall indicated a significant problem. "How long has it been leaking?" I asked, already calculating materials and time. "It started during last month's storm," she admitted, looking slightly embarrassed. "I tried patching it myself, but clearly, I should stick to canvases and leave roofs to professionals." I nodded, secretly impressed she'd attempted repairs herself. "I need to check the actual roof to assess the damage. Mind if I set up my ladder?" The rain had slowed to a drizzle, which made examining the roof easier, but no less dangerous. The shingles were in worse shape than I'd anticipated. Years of coastal weather had taken their toll, and several were missing entirely, creating the perfect entry point for water. I was so focused on documenting the damage that I didn't notice. Sofia had climbed the ladder until she spoke directly behind me, making me jump. "Is it a total disaster?" she asked, seemingly unbothered by the 3-story height or the slick surface. "Ma'am, Sofia, you really shouldn't be up here," I stammered, instinctively reaching out to steady her. "It's not safe." She laughed, a warm, genuine sound that somehow cut through the gloomy weather. "I've climbed mountains in Peru and balanced on temple ruins in Cambodia. I think I can handle my own roof." There was something disarming about her confidence, the way she seemed completely comfortable in situations that would make most people nervous. I found myself smiling despite my concern. "Well, the verdict is pretty clear," I explained, pointing to the damaged areas. "You need more than a patch job. Several sections need complete replacement, and there's likely water damage to the underlayment as well." Sofia nodded thoughtfully, brushing damp hair from her face. "How long will it take? And more importantly, how much will it cost?" Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. I gave her a rough estimate for both, watching her expression carefully. Home repairs of this magnitude often caused sticker shock, but she simply nodded again. "When can you start?" she asked. "I can get materials today and begin tomorrow, weather permitting," I replied, surprised by her quick decision. Most homeowners wanted multiple quotes or time to think it over. As we carefully made our way down the ladder, the skies opened up again, drenching us in seconds. Sofia didn't seem to mind, laughing as we dashed to the porch. "You should come in and dry off," she suggested, already opening the door. "I've got coffee, or something stronger if you prefer." I hesitated, aware of crossing the line between professional and personal. But I was soaked, and something about Sofia's house felt inviting in a way I couldn't explain. Inside, she handed me a towel and disappeared into the kitchen, returning with 2 steaming mugs of what turned out to be the most delicious hot chocolate I'd ever tasted. "Family recipe," she explained, noticing my expression. "The secret is cayenne pepper and real vanilla." We sat at her kitchen table, surrounded by art and the gentle sound of rain on windows. Sofia asked about my business, and I found myself sharing more than I usually would with clients. How I'd started as a teenager helping my grandfather, built the company from scratch after college, and managed to keep it afloat even during the economic downturn. In turn, she told me she was an artist and art teacher who had recently moved back to Mapleton after 20 years away. "This was my parents' house," she explained. "I inherited it last year when my father passed. I grew up here, but I've spent most of my adult life elsewhere." There was something about the way she spoke, direct yet warm, with no pretense, that made conversation flow easily. Before I realized it, an hour had passed, and I had appointments to keep. As I gathered my things to leave, Sofia walked me to the door. "Thank you for fitting me into your schedule," she said. "Not everyone would rearrange their day for a roof emergency." "That's what local businesses are for," I replied with a smile. "I'll be back tomorrow with materials and get started right away." The next morning dawned surprisingly clear, a rare gift in Oregon spring. I arrived at Sofia's house early, truck loaded with supplies. She greeted me with coffee in a hand-painted mug and a container of homemade muffins. "Fuel for the work ahead," she said, handing them to me. "I'll be in my studio if you need anything." The roof work was challenging but straightforward. Years of contracting had taught me how to navigate steep pitches and identify hidden damage. By midday, I'd removed the compromised sections and was preparing to install new underlayment. Sofia emerged from the house occasionally, offering water or checking on progress, but mostly leaving me to work in peace. Around 3 in the afternoon, I was startled by music drifting up from below, something classical that somehow complemented the rhythm of my hammering. When sunset approached, I'd made good progress but wasn't finished. As I was packing up for the day, Sofia appeared on the porch. "Would you like to stay for dinner?" she asked. "I always cook too much, and it seems fair after you spent the day fixing my disaster." Again, I hesitated. Dining with clients wasn't something I typically did. But the smell wafting from her kitchen was tempting, and the prospect of my empty apartment less so. "I should probably clean up first," I said, gesturing to my dirty work clothes. "I have a shower you can use," she offered, "and probably some clothes that might fit you. My ex-husband left some things behind." The mention of an ex-husband shouldn't have registered as significant, but something in my expression must have changed because Sofia smiled slightly. "Don't worry, he's long gone. Moved to Australia 5 years ago. The clothes are clean, just forgotten." Dinner was a homemade paella that rivaled anything I'd eaten in restaurants, accompanied by a Spanish wine Sofia had been saving for a special occasion. "Is a roof repair a special occasion?" I asked, curious. She laughed. "A home becoming whole again is always worth celebrating." As we ate, Sofia shared stories of her travels, teaching art in rural communities across South America, studying traditional techniques in Japan, exhibiting her work in tiny galleries and prestigious museums alike. Her life seemed so full of color and experience compared to mine. "What about you?" she asked eventually. What does Ethan do when he's not rescuing leaky houses? The question caught me off guard. What did I do? Work, mostly. Since the divorce, my life had narrowed to a comfortable but limited routine. I fish sometimes, I offered lamely, and I'm renovating an old boat when I have time. Sofia nodded, as if I'd said something profound. Creating something new from something broken. That's beautiful work. After dinner, as I was preparing to leave, Sofia walked me to my truck. The night air was cool but clear, with stars visible above the coastal fog. Thank you again, she said. Not just for the roof, but for the company. I should be thanking you for the meal, I replied. Best paella I've ever had. She smiled, and in the dim porch light, I noticed how her eyes crinkled at the corners. There was something about her I couldn't quite define, a combination of strength and vulnerability that felt rare. What time will you be back tomorrow? She asked. Around 8 if that works for you. She nodded. I'll have coffee waiting. I drove home thinking about Sofia's house, not the damaged roof or the repairs still needed, but the way it felt alive with stories and experiences. My apartment, when I unlocked the door, seemed especially empty by comparison. The next 3 days followed a similar pattern. I'd arrive early to work on the roof. Sofia would provide coffee and occasional conversation, and I'd find myself staying a little longer each evening, drawn into her world of art and stories. By the 4th day, the major repairs were complete, with only finishing touches remaining. I was sealing the final section when dark clouds rolled in unexpectedly, bringing sharp, cold raindrops that stung my exposed skin. "Ethan!" Sofia called from below. "Come down before you get electrocuted." I secured my tools and hurried down, the ladder just as thunder boomed overhead. Sofia stood at the bottom, concern etched on her face. "That storm wasn't supposed to hit until tonight," she said, ushering me inside. The forecast was completely wrong. We watched from her kitchen window as the storm intensified, rain pounding against the new roof in a test of my workmanship. Sofia made tea, and we sat at her table listening. "No drips," she observed after several minutes. "I think you've worked a miracle." "Just doing my job," I replied, though her approval warmed me more than the tea. The storm showed no signs of letting up, trapping us inside as afternoon turned to evening. Sofia suggested a tour of her studio while we waited, leading me to a converted sunroom at the back of the house. The space was breathtaking, north-facing windows providing perfect light, walls covered with canvases in various stages of completion. Her paintings were vibrant abstracts that somehow conveyed specific emotions, joy, longing, hope, through color and texture alone. "These are incredible," I said honestly, moving from one to another. "You're really talented." Sofia shrugged, but I could tell the compliment pleased her. "I've had a lot of time to practice. Art has been my constant companion through everything." She showed me her current project, a large canvas dominated by blues and greens, with golden light breaking through what looked like storm clouds. "It's not finished," she explained. "Something's missing, but I haven't figured out what yet." As the storm continued to rage outside, Sofia cooked again, a simple pasta dish this time, and we ate at her dining table surrounded by candlelight. After the power flickered out, the intimacy of the situation wasn't lost on me. In the soft glow, with rain drumming on the newly repaired roof, I found myself telling Sofia things I rarely shared, about my failed marriage, how my ex-wife had wanted a different life than I could provide, how the divorce had left me questioning my worth beyond what I could build or fix. Sofia listened without judgment, occasionally asking questions that made me think more deeply about my own story. When I finished, she was quiet, for a moment. "Would you stay?" she asked suddenly, her voice different than I'd heard before. "If I told you I'm 48, I'm serious." The question caught me completely off guard. "What do you mean?" She took a deep breath. "I'm 48, Ethan. 16 years older than you. And I'm not asking hypothetically. I'm asking because I feel something happening between us, and I need to know if my age changes that for you." The candlelight caught the silver in her hair, the fine lines around her eyes, details I'd noticed but hadn't really considered. 48. The number itself meant nothing to me, but the vulnerability in her question meant everything. "Why would that matter?" I asked genuinely. Her smile was sad and knowing. Because it always matters to someone, eventually. Because women my age are supposed to be invisible, especially to younger men. Because I've been down this road before, and watched someone I cared about walk away when the reality of our age difference finally sank in. I considered her words carefully, aware that my answer mattered more than I initially understood. "Sophia," I finally said, "I don't care if you're 48 or 58 or 38. What I care about is how easily I can talk to you. How this house feels more like home after 4 days than my apartment has in 3 years. And how I keep finding excuses to stay a little longer each night." The power chose that moment to return, lights flickering on and breaking the spell of the candles. Sophia blinked in the sudden brightness, and I worried I'd said too much, misread the situation entirely. But then she reached across the table and took my hand, her artist's fingers strong and certain against mine. "Then stay tonight," she said simply. "The storm's not letting up anyway." And so I did, that night and many nights after. The roof repair extended into painting her house exterior, which led to renovating her kitchen, which somehow turned into rebuilding my life alongside hers. It wasn't always easy. There were raised eyebrows from some friends, concerned questions from my parents, and occasional moments when cultural references or life experiences didn't align. But those differences mattered less than what we built together. A relationship based on honesty, shared values, and the understanding that life's most important connections don't always come when or how we expect them. Sophia taught me to see beauty in imperfection, to value experiences over possessions, and to recognize that sometimes the most meaningful repairs are the ones we make to ourselves. In return, I hope I gave her stability without stagnation, partnership without possession, and the certainty that age was just a number that measured time, but not worth or desirability. A year after that rainy day on her roof, I proposed on the newly built deck overlooking the ocean, another project we'd completed together. 2 years after that, we opened a community arts center in downtown Mapleton, combining my construction skills with her artistic vision to create a space where others could discover their own creative paths. Now when people ask how we met, Sophia always begins the story the same way. "He was fixing my roof when I asked if he'd stay if I told him I was 48. Turns out he stayed because of who I am, not despite how old I am. And that, more than anything, is what I'm most proud of building. A love that sees beyond numbers to the heart of what truly matters." The morning after Sophia's question changed everything. I woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar curtains. For a moment, I was disoriented. Then memories of the night before rushed back. The storm, the candlelight, and the simple honesty of Sophia's words. I turned to find her side of the bed empty, but the scent of coffee guided me downstairs. I found her in the kitchen, barefoot in a paint-splattered robe, humming softly while flipping pancakes. The domesticity of the scene struck me, not because it was ordinary, but because it felt so natural, as if we'd been sharing mornings for years instead of hours. "I was wondering when you'd surface," she said without turning around, somehow sensing my presence. "Sleep well?" "Better than I have in years," I admitted. And it was true. Something about Sophia's house, or maybe Sophia herself, had quieted the restlessness that usually followed me into dreams. She handed me a mug painted with swirling blues and greens, so similar to her current canvas upstairs. Our fingers brushed during the exchange, and the simple contact sent warmth through me that had nothing to do with the coffee. "About last night," I began, feeling we should address what had happened. Sophia turned, her expression open but guarded. "Second thoughts in the daylight?" "No," I said firmly, surprised by my own certainty. "I just wanted to make sure you didn't." The smile that broke across her face was worth any uncertainty I might have felt. "Ethan Richards, I've spent too many years worrying what other people think. At 48, I've earned the right to follow my heart without apology." We ate breakfast on her back porch, planning the day's work on the roof and talking about everything and nothing. Her upcoming art class, my appointment with a client across town, a book we'd both read years ago but remembered differently. "I should get going," I said eventually, reluctant to break the spell of the morning. "I've got that consultation at 10. Sophia nodded, collecting our plates. "Will you come back? After your other jobs?" There was a vulnerability in her question that made my chest tighten. "Try and stop me." As I drove to my appointment, I found myself thinking about numbers. Not just the 16 years between us, but other calculations that had governed my life. The 5 years I'd spent in a marriage that ended in failure. The 3 years since, measuring success by contracts completed and invoices paid. The countless evenings alone, telling myself solitude was preference rather than fear. Mrs. Hoffman, my 10 o'clock client, was a widow in her 70s who needed her bathroom renovated for accessibility. As I took measurements and discussed options, I found myself seeing her differently than I might have before. Not as merely elderly, but as someone with a full life history written in the photographs covering her walls and the stories she shared between technical questions. "My Harold built this house himself, you know," she told me, showing me a black and white photograph of a young man standing proudly in front of a half-constructed frame. Everyone said he was crazy to try, but he was determined. "It's a beautiful home," I said sincerely. "He did an excellent job." She patted my arm. "The secret is building something that can change with you, young man. Harold always said a good house grows as you do." Her words stayed with me throughout the day, through 2 more client meetings and a stop at the lumber yard. By 5 o'clock, when I pulled back into Sofia's driveway, I'd made a decision that both terrified and exhilarated me. Sofia was in her studio, music playing loudly enough that she didn't hear me enter. I stood in the doorway, watching her work. The confident strokes of her brush. The way she stepped back occasionally to consider the canvas from different angles. The complete absorption in her creation. This was Sofia in her element, and the passion was mesmerizing. She must have felt my gaze because she suddenly turned, startled at first, then breaking into a smile that crinkled the corners of her eyes. "You came back." I said I would. She set down her brush and crossed the room, stopping just short of embracing me, a question in her eyes. I answered by closing the distance, drawing her into my arms, inhaling the scent of paint, and something uniquely her. "I want to finish your roof," I said against her hair, "and then I want to take you to dinner. A real dinner. Somewhere nice. Our first official date." Sofia pulled back slightly, studying my face. "Are you sure? Once we do this publicly, people will talk." "Let them," I replied with a confidence that surprised me. "I spent 3 years hiding from possibilities, Sofia. I'm done with that." We sealed the agreement with a kiss that felt like a beginning. The next week passed in a blur of roofing by day and slowly getting to know each other by night. Sofia told me about her marriage to Richard, an academic who'd initially supported her art, but gradually grew resentful of its importance in her life. "He wanted me to be a faculty wife," she explained one evening as we sat on her newly repaired roof, watching the sunset, host dinner parties, edit his papers, put my painting aside for more practical pursuits. "So you left him?" She laughed, but there was sadness in it. "No, he left me. For a 26-year-old graduate student who thought he was brilliant. It was the biggest favor he ever did me, though it took years to see it that way." In turn, I shared more about my failed marriage to Kristen, how we'd met in college and followed the expected path, graduation, jobs, marriage, house, without ever really asking if it was what we wanted. She said I was too content. I admitted that I never wanted more than what was right in front of me. Maybe she was right. Sofia considered this, her profile gilded by the setting sun. "Or maybe you just hadn't found something worth reaching for yet." By Friday, the roof was completely finished. No more leaks, no more patches, just solid craftsmanship that would protect Sofia's home for years to come. We celebrated with the promised dinner at Harbor Light, the fanciest restaurant in Mapleton, where white tablecloths and candles created an atmosphere of occasion. Sofia wore a deep green dress that made her eyes shine, her silver-streaked hair swept up to reveal the elegant line of her neck. She looked sophisticated, confident, and undeniably beautiful. I felt simultaneously proud to be with her, and aware of my own roughness around the edges, in a sport coat I'd hastily purchased that afternoon. "You clean up nicely," she said, appraising me as we were seated. "I was just thinking how completely out of my league you are," I admitted. She reached across the table to take my hand. "Leagues are illusions, Ethan. Invented to keep people in their places." Our server approached. A young woman named Megan, whom I recognized as the daughter of a previous client. Her eyes widened slightly at seeing us together, and I felt Sofia's hand tense in mine. "Mr. Richards," Megan greeted me with professional warmth before turning to Sofia. "And Ms. Reeves, I didn't realize you two knew each other." "Ethan's been working on my roof," Sofia replied smoothly, "and now he's celebrating its completion by treating me to dinner." It wasn't exactly a lie, but it wasn't the whole truth, either. I felt a flicker of disappointment that Sofia had chosen such a neutral explanation, then immediately chastised myself for the thought. We were just beginning whatever this was. I had no right to expect declarations. After Megan left, with our drink orders, Sofia leaned forward. "I'm sorry if that bothered you. Small towns have big ears, and I wasn't sure how you wanted to handle this." Her consideration touched me. "I'm not ashamed of being here with you, Sofia." "It's not about shame," she replied softly. "It's about giving something new the space, to grow without everyone's opinions shaping it before we even know what it is." She was right, of course. By dessert, when Megan returned with our chocolate soufflé, I placed my hand over Sofia's on the table, making our connection clear to anyone watching. The small smile Sofia gave me was worth whatever gossip might follow. Outside the restaurant, the night air carried the scent of salt and pine. We walked slowly toward the car, in no hurry to end the evening. "Would you like to come back to my place?" Sofia asked, her voice casual, though her eyes held deeper meaning. "I would," I replied, equally casual. "I think I left some tools in your bedroom." Her laughter echoed in the quiet street, drawing glances from an older couple walking nearby. I recognized them as the Petersons, longtime Mapleton residents and regular customers at the hardware store where I bought supplies. "Ethan," Mr. Peterson called out with a friendly wave. "Didn't expect to see you out on the town." "Just finished a big project," I replied, gesturing to Sofia. "This is Sofia Reeves. Sofia, Jim, and Martha Peterson." Sofia extended her hand, graciously, but I noted the careful way she positioned herself. Friendly, but not standing quite close enough to me to suggest intimacy. "Lovely to meet you," Martha said, studying Sofia with undisguised curiosity. "Are you new to Mapleton? I don't believe we've met at community events." "I grew up here, actually," Sofia explained. "Just moved back last year to my parents' old place on Harborview." "The old Reeves house, of course," Jim exclaimed. "Your father was the high school principal when I was teaching. Wonderful man." The conversation continued pleasantly, but I felt the undercurrent of assessment, the mental calculations as the Petersons noted our body language, our attire, our apparent age difference. When we finally said goodbye and continued to my truck, Sofia was quieter than before. "They seemed nice," I offered, opening the passenger door for her. "They were," she agreed, settling into the seat. "And by tomorrow, half the town will know we had dinner together." "Does that bother you?" She considered the question as I started the engine. "Not if it doesn't bother you. But Ethan, you should understand what you're getting into. People will talk. Some will disapprove. They'll make assumptions about both of us. That I'm desperate, or you're using me for money, or a dozen other narratives that have nothing to do with reality. People talk regardless," I pointed out. "At least this gives them something interesting to discuss." That earned me a genuine laugh, dispelling some of the tension. As we drove back to her house, Sofia reached over to rest her hand on my leg, a simple gesture that felt profoundly right. Back at Sofia's, we opened a bottle of wine and moved to her living room, where a small fire chased away the coastal chill. Sitting beside her on the comfortable old couch, I realized how much I'd come to love this space in such a short time. The art-filled walls, the mismatched furniture that somehow worked together. The sense of a home built around passion rather than convention. "What are you thinking about?" Sofia asked, curling her legs beneath her. "How much I like being here," I answered honestly. "With you." She studied me over the rim of her wineglass. "Even though I'm old enough to have babysat you?" The question had an edge of humor but held a genuine concern. I set down my glass and turned to face her fully. "Sofia, I don't see numbers when I look at you. I see someone who's lived fully, who knows what she wants, who creates beauty, and doesn't apologize for taking up space in the world. That's not about age, it's about character." She set her own glass down and moved closer. And what do you want, Ethan Richards? Beyond the next roof to fix or boat to rebuild? The question hit deeper than she probably intended. What did I want? For years, I'd focused on the immediate, the tangible. Buildings that needed repair. Projects with clear beginnings and endings. The future had been a vague concept, something to worry about later. I want to build something that lasts, I said finally. Not just structures, but a life that means something. I want connections that go deeper than surface. I paused, gathering courage. I want to see where this goes, with you. Sofia's expression softened. She reached up to trace my jawline with gentle fingers. Even if this is complicated and messy and makes people uncomfortable? Especially then, I replied, catching her hand and pressing a kiss to her palm. The best things usually are. What followed was a night of discoveries, the constellation of freckles across Sofia's shoulders, the way she whispered my name like a question and then an answer, the perfect fit of her body against mine. Age disappeared in the dark, leaving only two people finding connection in a world that often makes it so difficult. Morning brought reality back in the form of my ringing phone, my assistant calling about a scheduling conflict with another job. As I handled the situation, Sofia made coffee and toast, moving around her kitchen with a grace that made domestic routines seem like choreography. I need to head to the Henderson job, I said reluctantly after ending the call. Their bathroom. Renovation hit a snag. Sofia nodded, understanding the demands of self-employment. Will I see you later? Definitely, I promised, kissing her goodbye. Dinner? I could bring takeout from that Thai place on Main. Perfect, she agreed, walking me to the door. I was halfway to my truck when a voice called out from next door. Well, well, if it isn't Mapleton's busiest contractor. The speaker was Vivian Blackwell, Sofia's neighbor and, as I would soon learn, the unofficial gossip coordinator of the neighborhood. In her 60s with perfectly coiffed blonde hair and a tennis outfit that suggested she'd just returned from the country club, she epitomized a certain type of small-town social gatekeeper. Morning, Mrs. Blackwell, I replied politely, though we'd never formally met. Beautiful day. Indeed, she agreed, eyes flicking from me to Sofia's front door and back. You've been working on Sofia's house quite extensively. Must be in terrible shape after all those years empty. The implication was clear. What else could explain my early morning departure from a single woman's home? Before I could respond, Sofia appeared on her porch. Vivian, good morning. I see you've met Ethan. He's done wonders with my roof. The emphasis on roof was subtle but pointed. Vivian's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. How fortunate you found someone so, dedicated, she replied. Your father always said that house would need a complete overhaul if it sat empty too long. Dad was right about many things, Sofia acknowledged. Luckily, Ethan's company specializes in bringing old houses back to life. The verbal sparring continued for another minute before I excused myself to get to my appointment. As I drove away, I caught Sofia's eye in the rearview mirror. She gave a small wave and an exaggerated eye roll that made me laugh out loud. The Henderson job took longer than expected, a waterline issue that required specialized parts, and it was nearly 7 when I finally picked up Thai food and headed back to Sofia's. The lights were on in her studio, and through the large windows I could see her working intently on the blue-green canvas I'd admired earlier. I knocked lightly on the glass door, not wanting to startle her. She looked up, brush in hand, and her face transformed from concentration to joy at the sight of me. That expression, the simple happiness at my arrival, filled some empty space inside me I hadn't known existed. Sorry I'm late, I said as she let me in. The Hendersons had complications. They always do, she replied with a knowing smile. Melissa Henderson changes her mind hourly. I taught her in community art class last summer. We set up dinner on her studio work table, pushing aside brushes and palettes to make room for containers of pad thai and green curry. As we ate, Sofia told me about her day. A breakthrough with her current painting, a call from a gallery in Portland interested in her work, and 3 different neighbors who had suddenly found reasons to visit or call. Vivian's been busy, she concluded with a rueful laugh. By tomorrow, everyone within a 5-mile radius will know you spent the night. I set down my fork, suddenly serious. Does that bother you? We can be more discreet if you'd prefer. Sofia considered the question thoughtfully. What bothers me isn't people knowing, but the assumptions they'll make. That I'm having a midlife crisis, or you're looking for a mother figure, or any number of ridiculous narratives that have nothing to do with what's actually happening between us. And what is happening between us? I asked, the question more vulnerable than I intended. Sofia reached across the table to take my hand. Something real, Ethan. Something unexpected and complicated and potentially wonderful. Something worth whatever gossip comes our way. Her words settled something in me, a question I hadn't fully articulated even to myself. This wasn't casual for either of us. It was worth protecting, worth fighting for. After dinner, we moved to her living room couch, where Sofia curled against me as we talked about everything and nothing. My childhood in a family of builders, her years traveling through Europe with just a backpack and sketchbook, books that had changed our perspectives, dreams still unrealized. I always wanted to build my own house from scratch, I admitted. Not just renovations or additions, but something complete, designed exactly the way I envision it. Why haven't you? She asked, genuinely curious. I shrugged. Time, money, finding the right location. Mostly, though, I think I was waiting to know exactly what I wanted it to be. Sofia nodded, understanding. The blank canvas problem. Sometimes, too many possibilities are more paralyzing than too few. Exactly, I agreed, amazed at how easily she grasped concepts I struggled to articulate. What about you? Any unfulfilled dreams? She was quiet for a moment, running her fingers absently along my arm. I always wanted to create a community art space, somewhere anyone could come to learn, create, and connect. Not just classes, but a true collaborative environment where art becomes a bridge between people who might otherwise never interact. The passion in her voice was captivating. I could see it clearly. A vibrant space filled with color and possibility, Sofia at its heart, guiding and inspiring. You should do it, I said. Mapleton needs something like that. She smiled sadly. It's just a dream, Ethan. The practicalities, space, funding, community support, those are significant obstacles. Obstacles can be overcome, I countered, especially by someone who moved back to her hometown at 48 and immediately tackled roof repairs herself. Sofia laughed, the sound warm against my chest. You make me sound braver than I am. Or maybe you don't realize how brave you actually are, I suggested. As the evening deepened into night, our conversation gave way to more intimate connections. There was an honesty between us that I'd never experienced before. A willingness to be seen completely, flaws and fears included. Age difference seemed meaningless in those moments of vulnerability and discovery. Later, as Sofia slept beside me, I found myself thinking about buildings and foundations, about how the strongest structures are those with the deepest roots. Whatever was growing between us felt like that. Something building slowly from solid ground, designed to withstand storms and seasons. I made a decision then, looking at her peaceful face in the moonlight. This, us, was worth whatever challenges might come. Age, gossip, others' expectations. None of it mattered compared to the rare connection we'd found. Tomorrow would bring its complications. There would be more neighbors like Vivian, more subtle judgments, more questions about our 16-year gap. But tonight, in the quiet of Sofia's art-filled home, I knew with certainty that I'd rather face those challenges together than return to the safer but emptier life I'd been living before I climbed her roof, and she asked her brave question. Over. The next few weeks, what had started as a roofing job evolved into something neither Sofia nor I could have anticipated. We fell into a comfortable rhythm, spending evenings and weekends together while maintaining our separate work lives during the day. I continued taking contracting jobs around Mapleton, and Sofia taught her art classes and worked on commissions in her studio. The town's reaction to our relationship was as predictable as the tide. Initial waves of gossip, followed by the gradual acceptance that comes when something unusual becomes familiar. There were raised eyebrows at the hardware store, whispered conversations that stopped when I entered the diner, and the occasional direct question about that artist woman I was seeing. I handled it all with a straightforwardness that seemed to disarm most critics. Yes, I'm dating Sofia Reeves. She's incredible. Have you seen her paintings? No defensiveness, no justifications for our age difference. just simple statements of fact that left little room for argument. Sofia faced her own version of this scrutiny, though often more pointed and personal. One Tuesday evening, she returned from her community art class looking drained, her usual post-teaching energy noticeably absent. "A rough day?" I asked, looking up from the kitchen cabinet I was fixing, another small project in the ongoing renovation of her house. She set down her art supplies with a sigh. "Vivian Blackwell joined my class today. Apparently, she suddenly developed a passionate interest in watercolor techniques." I winced. Vivian's interest in art was about as genuine as her natural hair color. Let me guess. She had questions that had nothing to do with painting. Sofia managed a tired smile. She waited until break time to corner me. "Sofia, dear, I'm just concerned." She mimicked Vivian's sugary tone. "A woman in your position should be careful about appearances. Men Ethan's age are often looking for different things than women our age." My grip tightened on the screwdriver. "What did you say?" I told her that at 48, I'm perfectly capable of determining someone's intentions, and that her concern, while noted, was unnecessary. Sofia kicked off her shoes and collapsed onto a kitchen chair. Then I demonstrated a particularly challenging brush technique that kept her frustrated and silent for the rest of class. I couldn't help laughing at the image. Weaponized art instruction. Brilliant. Sofia's expression softened as she watched me work. "It's worth it, you know. The gossip, the judgment, all of it. What we have is worth more than their opinions." Those simple words warmed me more than any passionate declaration could have. In Sofia's world of art and emotion, such a practical assessment of our relationship's value held special weight. The following Saturday, I took Sofia to meet my parents at their home on the outskirts of town. I'd been putting it off, not because I was ashamed, but because my mother's tendency to speak without filter made me nervous. My father, a retired contractor who'd taught me everything I knew about building, greeted us warmly at the door. "You must be Sofia," he said, enveloping her in a bear hug. "Ethan says you're quite the artist." My mother appeared behind him, wiping her hands on an apron, her expression one of barely contained curiosity. Come in, dinner's almost ready. Sofia, would you like wine? We have red or white." "Red would be lovely, thank you," Sofia replied with the easy grace that seemed to accompany everything she did. As my mother led Sofia to the kitchen, ostensibly to help with final dinner preparations, but more likely for a private interrogation, my father clapped me on the shoulder. "She's not what I expected," he said quietly. "What did you expect?" He shrugged. "From the way your mother was carrying on after hearing the gossip, I thought she'd be, I don't know, flashier? More artsy eccentric, but she seems solid, son. Grounded." His approval meant more than I wanted to admit. "She is, Dad. More than anyone I've ever met." In the kitchen, I could hear Sofia and my mother laughing about something, the ice apparently already broken. By the time we all sat down to eat, Sofia had somehow charmed my perpetually skeptical mother into showing her old family photo albums, something she hadn't done even for Kristen during our 5-year marriage. "Your son was the most serious child," my mother told Sofia over dessert, pointing to a picture of 7-year-old me constructing an elaborate fort. Always building something, always planning. Even his playtime was productive. Sofia studied the photograph, then looked at me with a smile that made my heart race. "That focus is one of the things I love most about him. He sees what needs to be done and does it, no drama or hesitation." It was the first time either of us had used the word love in reference to our relationship, even indirectly. The casual way she included it in conversation, as if it were an established fact rather than a new revelation, felt perfectly right. The evening ended with genuine hugs and promises of future dinners. As we drove back to Sofia's house, she reached over to take my hand. "Your parents are wonderful," she said. "Your mother asked if my intentions toward you were honorable." I nearly swerved the truck. "She didn't." Sofia laughed. "She absolutely did. Right after showing me your naked baby pictures and right before asking if I wanted her recipe for apple crisp." "And what did you tell her? About your intentions?" Sofia squeezed my hand. "I told her that my intention is to make you as happy as you make me for as long as you'll let me." The simple sincerity of her answer touched something deep inside me. There was no artifice with Sofia, no games or hidden agendas, just honest emotion and direct communication. It was refreshing after years of guessing what Kristen had really meant behind her carefully worded complaints. That night, as we lay in Sofia's bed watching moonlight create patterns on the ceiling, I found myself thinking about time. How arbitrary our measurement of it really was. How little chronological age mattered compared to emotional synchronicity. "What are you thinking about so intensely?" Sofia asked, tracing patterns on my chest. "Time," I answered honestly. "How strange it is that we put so much emphasis on when we were born, rather than who we've become since then." She propped herself up on one elbow, studying my face in the dim light. "The years do matter in some ways, Ethan. They shape us, teach us, leave their marks. I wouldn't be the person you care about without the experiences those 16 extra years gave me." "I know," I acknowledged. "But that's exactly my point. I'm not in love with a number. I'm in love with the person those years created." The Wanoi. Words hung in the air between us, my unplanned declaration echoing in the quiet room. Sofia's breath caught, her eyes widening slightly. "You love me?" she asked softly. Rather than backtrack or qualify, I embraced the truth that had been growing within me since that first rainy day on her roof. "I do. Completely. And it terrifies me and exhilarates me in equal measure." Sofia's smile bloomed slowly, her eyes brightening with unshed tears. "I love you too, Ethan Richards. Against my better judgment, despite all the practical reasons not to, I am absolutely in love with you." The admission transformed something between us, solidifying what had been forming since that first honest question about her age. This wasn't just an affair or a phase. It was a partnership forming, a foundation being laid for something lasting. The next morning, Sunday, we decided to have breakfast at Mapleton's most popular cafe. A public declaration of sorts. Walking in together, hand in hand, we were met with the usual mix of curious glances and whispered comments. But they seemed to matter less now, like background noise to something much more important. We had just received our coffee when a familiar voice called out, "Sofia! Ethan! What a lovely surprise!" Vivian Blackwell approached our table, immaculately dressed for after-church brunch, a tall, silver-haired man at her side. "This is my brother, Charles. He's visiting from Seattle. Charles, this is Sofia Reeves. She teaches that art class I told you about, and her friend, Ethan Richards." The deliberate pause before friend wasn't subtle. Charles, however, seemed oblivious to his sister's implications as he shook our hands warmly. "Sofia Reeves? The artist? I believe I saw your work at the Westridge Gallery in Portland last year. Extraordinary use of color and texture." Sofia's surprise was evident. "Yes, that was my exhibit. I'm flattered you remember it." Charles smiled, genuinely. "Hard to forget. Your piece, Thresholds, stayed with me for days afterward. I nearly purchased it, but someone beat me to it." The conversation shifted then, moving from Sofia's art to Charles's position as a gallery owner in Seattle. Vivian stood awkwardly to the side. Her attempted social sabotage transformed into a networking opportunity for Sofia. When they finally left our table, with Charles taking Sofia's business card and promising to be in touch about a potential Seattle showing, I couldn't help laughing at Vivian's thunderstruck expression. "That," I said, raising my coffee cup in a toast, "was poetic justice." Sofia clinked her cup against mine. "The universe works in mysterious ways." That chance encounter proved to be a turning point, not just for public perception of our relationship, but for Sofia's career. Charles was true to his word, contacting her the following week about including her work in an upcoming exhibition featuring Pacific Northwest artists. As spring turned to summer, our lives intertwined more deeply. I found myself spending most nights at Sofia's house, my apartment becoming little more than a storage space and mail drop. We developed routines and inside jokes, discovered each other's annoying habits and endearing quirks, and built the kind of comfortable intimacy that can't be rushed or forced. One evening in late July, as we sat on Sofia's newly finished deck watching the sunset over distant mountains, she brought up something I'd been carefully avoiding. "My birthday is next month," she said casually, swirling wine in her glass. "The big 49. I took her hand, sensing the weight behind her seemingly light comment. Should I plan something special? She was quiet for a moment, watching a seagull circle above the neighbor's roof. "Actually, I've been thinking about having a proper party. Inviting friends, colleagues, neighbors, making a statement of sorts." "What kind of statement?" Sofia turned to face me, her expression determined. "That I'm not hiding or ashamed, that I'm proud of my life and my choices, including you. That 49 is something to celebrate, not conceal." The courage in her declaration moved me deeply. In a culture that taught women to fear aging, to treat each birthday after 30 as a loss rather than a gain, Sofia's willingness to embrace her years was revolutionary. "I think it's a brilliant idea," I said. "And I'll help with whatever you need. Food, decorations, reinforcing the deck to handle dancing." She laughed, leaning over to kiss me. Always the practical builder. That's why we work so well, together. The party planning gave us a shared project beyond the ongoing house renovations. Sofia created invitations featuring a self-portrait she'd recently completed, unflinching in its honesty, showing every line in silver hair alongside the vibrancy and strength in her eyes. I handled logistics, renting tables and chairs, coordinating with a local caterer, building a temporary dance floor in the backyard. Word spread quickly, and the responses revealed much about Mapleton's evolving attitude toward us. Most people accepted with enthusiasm. Some declined with transparent excuses. And a few, including Vivian Blackwell, expressed surprise at being included. "Why invite Vivian?" I asked when Sofia added her to the list. "She's been nothing but difficult since we got together." Sofia smiled enigmatically. "Sometimes the people who most need to see something new are those most entrenched in old ways of thinking." The week before, the party brought unexpected stress when Sofia received a call from her daughter, Mia, who lived in Chicago with her husband and young son. "She's coming to the party," Sofia announced after ending the call, her expression a complicated mix of joy and anxiety. "With Jason and Liam." "That's wonderful," I said, then noticed her tension. "Isn't it?" Sofia sank onto the couch, suddenly looking tired. "It is. I've missed them terribly, but Mia has opinions, strong ones, and she hasn't quite wrapped her head around us yet." This was new information. I knew Sofia had a daughter and grandson, had seen their pictures and heard stories, but she rarely discussed her current relationship with them. "She disapproves?" Sofia sighed. "She's protective. After watching what her father put me through, she's suspicious of any man in my life. Add in our age difference and she thinks I'm taking advantage of you," I finished. "Understanding. Dawning. Something like that. She'll come around once she meets you." Mia judges quickly, but adjusts when presented with evidence that contradicts her initial assessment. Despite Sofia's reassurance, I felt a new pressure. Winning over nosy neighbors was one thing. Gaining the approval of Sofia's only child felt significantly more important. They arrived 3 days before the party. Mia, a younger version of Sofia with the same curly hair but fewer silver strands. Jason, her husband, tall and quietly supportive. And 5-year-old Liam, a bundle of energy with his grandmother's artistic eye. Our first meeting was awkward but civil. Mia assessed me openly, her gaze direct and uncompromising as we shook hands in Sofia's living room. "So you're the roofer," she said, the slight emphasis on my profession not lost on me. "Contractor, actually," I corrected gently, "though roofing is certainly part of what I do." Sofia intervened smoothly. "Ethan's company specializes in renovating older homes. He's transformed this place. Wait until you see the kitchen and deck." The house tour provided neutral territory, allowing me to discuss the structural improvements while Sofia pointed out aesthetic changes. Jason asked intelligent questions about building techniques, while Liam insisted on helping me measure various doorways with the tape measure I always carried. By dinner, the atmosphere had warmed slightly, though Mia maintained a polite distance. It wasn't until after the meal, when Sofia and Jason were cleaning up and Liam had fallen asleep on the couch, that Mia and I had our first real conversation. "My mother seems happy," she said without preamble, swirling the remains of her wine. "Happier than I've seen her in years." "I hope I contribute to that happiness," I replied honestly. Mia studied me, her expression softening marginally. "What exactly are your intentions with her? Because if this is some midlife adventure for you—" "It's not," I interrupted, meeting her gaze steadily. "I love your mother, Mia. Not as a phase or an experiment, but as the remarkable woman she is. If you're asking if this is serious for me, the answer is yes. Completely." She considered this, then asked the question that clearly worried her most. "And the age difference? You're what, 35? That's a lot of years, especially down the road." It was a fair concern, one Sofia and I had discussed ourselves. I'm 34, and yes, 16 years means different things at different stages of life. But I'd rather have whatever time we get together than decades without her. Something in my response seemed to reach Mia, because her expression changed subtly. Not quite approval, but perhaps the beginning of understanding. "If you hurt her," she said finally, "if this turns out to be temporary for you, while it's everything to her, I will personally ensure you regret it." I couldn't help smiling at the fierce protection in her voice. I would expect nothing less. She raised a strong advocate. Mia didn't exactly warm to me overnight, but the following days brought a gradual thawing. She watched how I interacted with Sofia, noted the easy partnership we'd developed, and, perhaps most convincingly, saw how her son had taken an immediate liking to me, demanding Builder Ethan read his bedtime stories. The night before the party, as final preparations were underway, Mia found me alone on the deck, double-checking the fairy lights I'd strung among the rafters. "You're good for her," she said simply, handing me a beer. I didn't want to believe it, but it's true. "She's better for me," I replied, accepting both the beer and the olive branch it represented. Mia smiled, the first genuine one she'd directed at me. "Maybe you're good for each other, just be patient with the journey. My mom carries old wounds that sometimes reopen when least expected." "I'm not going anywhere," I assured her. "Whatever comes, we'll face it together." The day of Sofia's birthday dawned clear and warm, perfect weather for an outdoor celebration. By noon, the backyard was transformed with tables adorned with wildflower centerpieces, the dance floor ready, and Sofia's paintings displayed along the fence like an outdoor gallery. Sofia herself was radiant in a deep blue dress that made her eyes shine, her silver-streaked hair loose around her shoulders. Watching her greet early arrivals, laughing and gesturing animatedly, I felt a surge of pride and love so intense it nearly overwhelmed me. Mia appeared at my side, following my gaze to her mother. "You really do love her, don't you?" she asked softly. "More than I knew was possible," I admitted. She nodded, seemingly satisfied, then surprised me by kissing my cheek. "Then welcome to the family, Ethan, unofficially at least." As afternoon shifted to evening, the party hit its stride. Nearly 60 people filled the backyard, artists from Sofia's classes, contractors I'd worked with, neighbors, including a subdued Vivian Blackwell, and friends from both our circles. My parents arrived bearing an enormous cake, and my father immediately bonded with Jason over their shared interest in vintage cars. The most unexpected guest was Charles Blackwell, Vivian's brother, who arrived with a woman I later learned was the director of one of Seattle's most prestigious galleries. They spent considerable time examining Sofia's displayed works, making notes, and discussing them in low voices. Around sunset, when everyone had eaten and the wine was flowing freely, Mia clinked a glass to gather attention. "I'd like to propose a toast to my incredible mother on her 49th birthday." Sofia moved to stand beside me, slipping her hand into mine as her daughter continued. "Mom has always lived authentically, following her heart even when it led in unexpected directions. She taught me that courage isn't the absence of fear, but moving forward despite it. That beauty exists in honesty, in vulnerability, in embracing all parts of ourselves, including our age and experience." Mia raised her glass higher. "To Sofia Reeves, artist, mother, fighter, lover of life, who proves every day that the best chapters can begin at any page in our story." To Sophia, echoed throughout the yard as glasses raised in salute. I squeezed Sophia's hand, watching, a single tear trace down her cheek. When she turned to me, her smile contained everything I'd ever wanted: acceptance, partnership, and a love unbound by conventional expectations. Later, as music played and couples danced beneath the stars and fairy lights, Sophia and I swayed together, her head resting against my chest. "Happy?" I asked softly. She looked up, her face glowing in the gentle light. "Beyond happy. This feels like a threshold." "Between what and what?" I wondered. "Between hiding and being fully seen," she replied. "Between fearing judgment and living without apology. Between doubt and certainty." I understood exactly what she meant. Something had shifted tonight, not just in how others saw us, but in how we saw ourselves. No longer an unusual pairing defying expectations, but simply two people who had found in each other exactly what they needed. As if reading my thoughts, Sophia said, "Thank you for staying that day. For not walking away when I asked if my age mattered." "Best decision I ever made," I replied, pulling her closer as we continued to dance under the vast Oregon sky, surrounded by friends and family who had witnessed our unlikely beginning transform into something solid and true. The roof that had brought us together now sheltered a home we were building day by day. Not just of wood and nails, but of shared dreams, mutual respect, and the kind of love that recognizes no boundaries, least of all the arbitrary number of years between birth dates. In the months following Sophia's birthday party, our relationship deepened in ways I hadn't anticipated. The public declaration of our connection seemed to free us both from lingering concerns about perception, allowing us to focus on building a shared future rather than defending our present. One crisp October morning, I arrived at Sophia's house to find her surrounded by stacks of papers at the kitchen table, a look of intense concentration on her face. A half-empty coffee mug sat forgotten at her elbow, and her reading glasses perched on the end of her nose, a recent concession to turning 49 that she claimed to hate, but that I found endlessly endearing. "Did I interrupt something important?" I asked, setting down the bag of fresh bagels I'd brought for breakfast. She looked up, her focus clearing as she registered my presence. "Ethan, sorry, I got lost in these building codes and zoning regulations." "Building codes?" I moved closer, curious about what had captured her attention so completely. The papers appeared to be municipal documents, property records, and what looked like rough sketches of a floor plan. Sophia removed her glasses, rubbing the bridge of her nose. "Remember my dream about a community art space? After the success of the exhibition in Seattle, I started thinking, maybe it's not just a fantasy, maybe it could be real." The excitement in her voice was contagious. I pulled up a chair beside her, scanning the documents with newfound interest. "You're serious about this?" "I am," she confirmed, reaching for a particular sheet. "There's a vacant building downtown, the old hardware store that closed last year. It's actually zoned for mixed use already, and the layout would be perfect for studios and gallery space." I remembered the building, a solid brick structure with large windows and high ceilings, in need of renovation but structurally sound. My mind automatically began calculating necessary repairs, potential configurations, load-bearing considerations. "The location is ideal," I agreed. "Right in the center of town, walkable from most neighborhoods. But Sophia, a project like this, it's a massive undertaking, financially, logistically." She nodded, her expression sobering slightly. "I know, that's why I haven't mentioned it before. But I've been doing research, reaching out to arts organizations about grants, looking into community investment options." There was something in her manner, a blend of determination and vulnerability, that moved me deeply. This wasn't just a passing interest or temporary enthusiasm. This was Sophia's vision for her future, for contributing something meaningful to Mapleton. "Show me everything," I said, pulling the nearest stack of papers toward me. "Let's figure out how to make this happen." The smile that bloomed across her face was worth any challenge ahead. For the next several hours, we pored over documents, made lists, researched costs, and began shaping her dream into something tangible. My contracting experience complemented her artistic vision perfectly. Where she saw possibilities for creative spaces, I saw practical solutions for bringing those spaces to life. By evening, we had the beginnings of a real plan. The building would cost more than Sofia had initially hoped, and renovations would easily double that investment. But with careful planning and phased development, it seemed possible. What if we combined resources? I suggested as we sat on her porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues that rivaled Sofia's canvases. I've been saving to build my own place someday, but this feels more important. Sofia turned to me, her expression serious. Ethan, that's your dream. I couldn't ask you to give that up for mine. I took her hand, tracing the paint stains that permanently marked her fingers. What if it could be our dream? I've been thinking for a while now that this house feels more like home than anywhere I've ever lived. Not because of the building itself, but because you're here. Are you saying what I think you're saying? Sofia asked cautiously. I'm saying I love you, I replied simply. I'm saying that home is wherever we build it together. And I'm saying that maybe it's time to make that official. Her eyes widened as my meaning became clear. Ethan, I'm not proposing right now, I clarified quickly. When I do that, it'll be special. But I am suggesting that maybe we could combine our lives more formally, share a home officially, pool our resources for this art center, build something lasting together. Sofia was quiet for a long moment, her expression thoughtful. Then, she squeezed my hand and said softly, I'd like that very much. 2 weeks later, I officially moved in. The process was remarkably simple. I'd accumulated few meaningful possessions in my years of post-divorce bachelorhood, and Sofia's house already felt like mine in many ways. We converted her smallest spare bedroom into a home office for my contracting business, rearranged closets and drawers to accommodate my clothes, and integrated my favorite reading chair into her living room. My apartment lease expired without renewal, and just like that, we were officially cohabitating. The transition felt so natural that it was almost anticlimactic. No drama, no major adjustments, just the comfortable merging of two lives that had already been intertwining for months. The Art Center project, meanwhile, moved forward with surprising momentum. Sofia's connection with Charles Blackwell proved invaluable. Not only did he introduce her to potential investors, but he also helped secure a matching grant from a regional arts foundation, impressed by her vision of accessibility and community engagement. I spent evenings and weekends inspecting the downtown building, drawing up renovation plans, and contacting subcontractors I trusted for specialized work. My regular clients received notice that I was scaling back on new projects to focus on a major downtown renovation, a decision that raised eyebrows, but generally met with understanding when I explained the purpose. It's going to be a game changer for Mapleton, I told Mrs. Henderson during my final visit to complete her bathroom renovation. A place for creativity, connection, learning, open to everyone from kids to seniors. Sofia's idea, I presume? Mrs. Henderson asked with a knowing smile. She had attended the birthday party and witnessed firsthand the partnership we'd formed. Her vision, I confirmed proudly. I'm just helping with the nuts and bolts. Mrs. Henderson patted my arm. You two are good for each other, and good for this town. We've needed some fresh energy around here for years. This sentiment seemed increasingly common as word spread about the Art Center plans. Even Vivian Blackwell, perhaps influenced by her brother's enthusiasm, began speaking positively about the project at her garden club meetings. The town council expedited permit approvals, and several local businesses offered in-kind donations of materials or services. By Thanksgiving, we had secured enough funding to purchase the building and begin initial renovations. The closing date was set for mid-December, a holiday gift to ourselves and the community. Mia and her family joined us for Thanksgiving dinner, along with my parents and a few close friends. The house buzzed with conversation and laughter, with 5-year-old Liam racing between adults and proudly showing everyone the masterpiece he'd created in Grandma Sofia's studio. After dinner, as we all relaxed in the living room with coffee and pie, Sofia stood and clinked her glass for attention. I have something to share, she announced, her eyes bright with excitement. As some of you know, Ethan and I have been working on a project close to my heart, a community arts center for Mapleton. Murmurs of interest rippled through the room as Sofia continued. What you might not know is that we've secured funding, purchased the old hardware store downtown, and will begin renovations next month. By next summer, Threshold's Community Arts will open its doors to everyone in this community. Applause erupted, led enthusiastically by my father, who had been one of our earliest supporters. Sofia raised her hand to quiet the celebration. "There's more," she said, glancing at me with a smile that made my heart race. "This center represents something I've dreamed of for years. A place where art breaks down barriers, where people connect across differences, where transformation happens, and it feels fitting that it's becoming reality now, at a time when my personal life has been similarly transformed." She extended her hand to me, inviting me to join her. As I stood beside her, she continued, "Ethan and I want to thank all of you for your support, your acceptance, and your belief in both our relationship and this project. Your faith in us has made this possible." My mother, never one to contain her emotions, wiped away tears. "You two are building something beautiful, in more ways than one." Later that evening, after our guests had departed and we were cleaning the last of the dishes, Sofia turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "Today made me realize something," she said, drying a serving platter. "We're not just building an arts center. We're creating community, bringing people together across generations, backgrounds, experiences." I nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. Our Thanksgiving gathering had included people from their 20s to their 70s, artists and contractors, lifelong Mapleton residents and relative newcomers. The connections forming between these diverse individuals mirrored exactly what we hoped the Arts Center would accomplish. "It's a microcosm of our vision," I agreed, "and proof that it can work." Sofia set down her towel and wrapped her arms around my waist, looking up at me with an expression that still made my breath catch, even after months together. "Thank you for believing in me," she said softly, "for seeing possibilities instead of problems." I kissed her gently. "That's easy when you're the one showing the way." The following weeks passed in a whirlwind of activity. The building purchase closed on December 15th, and we held an impromptu celebration at the empty space, inviting supporters to tour the shell that would soon become Threshold's Community Arts. Sofia had created architectural renderings showing her vision: bright studios with northern light, flexible gallery space, a small coffee bar, and communal areas, designed to encourage interaction. My contracting skills were immediately put to use as we began the first phase of renovations, structural repairs and updates to the building's systems. I assembled a team of trusted subcontractors, many of whom offered discounted rates after hearing about the project's purpose. Christmas arrived amid sawdust and blueprints, but we took a brief pause to celebrate properly. Sofia transformed our home with simple but elegant decorations: pine boughs, twinkling lights, and handcrafted ornaments. We hosted another family gathering, smaller than Thanksgiving, but no less warm. On Christmas Eve, after everyone had gone and the house was quiet, except for the crackling fire, I retrieved a small package I'd hidden in my workshop weeks earlier. "I have something for you," I said, sitting beside Sofia on the couch. "I couldn't wait until morning." She accepted, the box with curious eyes, carefully untying the ribbon. Inside was a set of keys on a hand-forged metal keychain shaped like an artist's palette. "The building keys arrived today," she guessed, smiling at the thoughtful presentation. "Not exactly," I replied, suddenly nervous despite months of planning. "Those are the keys to our future home." Sofia looked confused. "But we already live here." "Open the envelope underneath," I encouraged gently. She did, revealing architectural drawings of a house, modern but warm, with large windows, capturing views of the mountains, extensive studio space, and an open floor plan designed for both living and creating. "What is this?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I took a deep breath. "It's the house I've always wanted to build. On that piece of land overlooking the valley that we walked last summer. The one you said felt like standing on the edge of possibility." Sofia's eyes widened. "You bought that land?" "I did," I confirmed. 6 months ago, after you mentioned how perfect it would be for a house with studio space. I've been working on these plans ever since, incorporating everything you've ever mentioned wanting in a creative space. Tears formed in her eyes as she studied the drawings more carefully, noting the details that reflected her needs and preferences. Northern light for the studio, built-in storage for supplies, a wraparound porch for outdoor painting in good weather. "It's perfect," she whispered. "But Ethan, with the Art Center investment, the timing works," I assured her. "Construction won't begin until next year, after the center's first phase is complete. And I've calculated everything carefully. This is possible, Sofia. A space that's truly ours, designed for both our needs, with room for future possibilities." She looked up from the plans, her expression a mix of joy and something deeper. Future possibilities? The moment had arrived, the one I'd been planning for months. I reached into my pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. "Sofia Reeves," I said, my voice steady despite my pounding heart. "You asked me once if I would stay if you told me you were 48. Now I'm asking if you'll stay with me for all the years ahead. If you'll marry me and build a life in this new home, growing older together, creating together, loving together without concern for numbers or conventions or anything but what we mean to each other." I opened the box to reveal a ring, not a traditional diamond, but a unique design featuring a small painting under clear resin, displaying colors that matched Sofia's signature palette, set in a silver band shaped like intertwining branches. "Oh, Ethan," she breathed, touching the ring with trembling fingers. "Did you—" "I worked with an artist in Portland who specializes in wearable art," I explained. "The painting is a miniature inspired by your work, the colors of possibility, as you once described them." Sofia's tears flowed freely now, but her smile was radiant. "Yes," she said simply. "Yes to all of it. The marriage, the house, the future. Yes to building a life beyond what either of us imagined possible before that day on the roof." As I slipped the ring onto her finger, I felt a sense of rightness that transcended all conventional thinking about age and relationships. We had found each other at exactly the time we were ready to appreciate what the other offered. Her wisdom and creative courage, my practical determination and unwavering support. "Merry Christmas, my love," I whispered, pulling her close. "The best gift possible," she replied, her head resting against my chest where she could surely feel my racing heart. "A future built on honesty from the very first question." News of our engagement spread quickly through Mapleton after the holidays. Reactions ranged from genuine congratulations to predictable gossip, but none of it touched us the way it might have earlier in our relationship. We had proven ourselves, to the community, to our families, and most importantly, to each other. January brought heavy rains that slowed construction on the Art Center, but provided perfect weather for planning. Sofia and I spent evenings refining details for both the center and our future home, finding that our different perspectives created better solutions than either of us might have developed alone. "This is why we work," Sofia observed one night as we resolved a tricky design challenge for the center's entryway. "You see structure, I see aesthetics, and together we create something that serves both purposes." The observation extended beyond our projects to our relationship itself. The balance we'd found between practicality and passion, between building and dreaming, between my youth and her experience. February brought an unexpected opportunity when the local community college approached Sofia about developing an art program in partnership with the center. The proposal would provide stable funding and institutional support while maintaining the creative independence Sofia valued. "It's perfect," I encouraged, when she expressed hesitation about the administrative responsibilities. "You've always said art should be accessible to everyone. This ensures it will be." "What if I'm not qualified?" she worried, revealing a rare moment of self-doubt. "I'm an artist, not an educator with degrees and credentials." I reminded her of the workshop she'd led at her Seattle exhibition, how attendees had lined up afterward to thank her for making complex techniques understandable, how children and seniors alike had connected with her teaching style. "You've been educating people about art your entire career," I pointed out. "Now you'll just have a more formal platform to do it." With my encouragement, Sofia accepted the position as program director, beginning part-time while the center was under construction and transitioning to full-time once it opened. The role meant postponing our house construction slightly, but the opportunity felt too aligned with our vision to decline. March arrived with warming temperatures and accelerated progress on the Art Center. The building's transformation was becoming visible, New windows installed, interior walls framed, electrical and plumbing updated. Sofia spent hours on site, her artist's eye catching details my contractor's perspective sometimes missed. One Saturday afternoon, as we took a break from installing insulation, we sat on a stack of drywall sharing a thermos of coffee and surveying our progress. "It's really happening," Sofia marveled, her expression one of wonder. "Sometimes I still can't believe it." "Believe it," I replied, squeezing her hand. "This time next year, these rooms will be filled with people creating, learning, connecting." She leaned against my shoulder, comfortable in her paint-splattered overalls and work boots. A far cry from the sophisticated artist who'd impressed gallery owners in Seattle, but every bit as beautiful to me. "You know what I love most about this project?" she asked reflectively. "It's not just what we're building, but who we're becoming while building it. I feel more confident, more certain of my purpose than ever before." I nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. "That's how you make me feel too, like the best version of myself. Not because you're trying to change me, but because you see possibilities I didn't recognize. That's what love should do," Sofia said simply. "Reveal us to ourselves." April brought Sofia's daughter and grandson for a visit during spring break. Mia, now fully supportive of our relationship, brought wedding magazines and enthusiastically joined planning discussions. 5-year-old Liam was more interested in the art center construction, appointing himself junior foreman and solemnly inspecting our work with a plastic hard hat I'd given him. "When it's done, can I teach painting too?" he asked Sofia seriously. "I'm very good at purple." "Absolutely," Sofia assured him. "We'll need experts in all colors." On their last evening, after Liam had gone to bed, Mia joined Sofia and me on the porch with glasses of wine. The spring air was cool, but pleasant, filled with the scent of new growth and possibility. "I need to apologize to both of you," Mia said unexpectedly. "When I first heard about your relationship, I made assumptions. I was wrong." Sofia reached for her daughter's hand. "You were being protective." "I understand." Mia shook her head. "It was more than that. I think I was afraid of seeing you truly happy, Mom. Because it meant admitting how unhappy you were with Dad for so many years, how much we all compromised to maintain a fiction of family stability." The honesty of her statement hung in the air between us. Sofia's expression reflected old pain, but also acceptance. "We did the best we could with what we understood then," she said gently. "And it gave me you, the greatest gift of my life. I wouldn't change that for anything." Mia turned to me then. "Thank you for loving her the way she deserves, for seeing who she really is. My whole life, I watched her shrink herself to fit other people's expectations. With you, she's expanded into something magnificent." Her words touched me deeply. "Your mother taught me that love isn't about finding someone who checks arbitrary boxes of age or background. It's about finding the person who makes you more authentically yourself." May arrived with final preparations for the art center's grand opening scheduled for June. The renovation was nearly complete. Walls painted in the warm, inviting colors Sofia had selected. Specialized lighting installed to showcase artwork. Properly, flexible spaces created for classes and events. Local artists had begun applying for studio space, and the initial class schedule was filling rapidly. What had started as Sofia's personal dream was becoming a community reality. A transformation I found deeply moving to witness. One evening, as sunset painted the newly finished gallery in golden light, I found Sofia standing alone in the space, tears streaming silently down her face. "What's wrong?" I asked, immediately concerned. She shook her head, smiling through her tears. "Nothing's wrong. Everything is incredibly right. I was just thinking about that day on the roof. How one honest question changed everything." I wrapped my arms around her from behind, both of us gazing at the empty walls that would soon display creativity in countless forms. "If you hadn't asked if I would stay knowing your age, we might never have had this," I reflected. "That kind of honesty takes remarkable courage." Sofia turned in my arms to face me. It wasn't courage so much as necessity. I'd spent too many years hiding parts of myself, pretending age didn't matter when society insisted it did. I needed to know if you could see past the number to the person. "The number never mattered," I assured her. What mattered was the life you'd lived, the wisdom you'd gained, the person you'd become through every experience, good and painful. That's who I fell in love with. As we stood there in the space we'd created together, a physical manifestation of possibility, of boundaries crossed and conventions challenged, I felt a profound gratitude for that rainy day on Sofia's roof and her brave question that had opened the door to everything that followed. The art center would open in 2 weeks. Our wedding was planned for August. Construction on our house would begin in September. But the true building project, the one that mattered most, was already complete. The foundation of trust, honesty, and mutual respect that would support whatever future we created together. Sofia's voice broke into my thoughts. "You know, what I've learned through all of this?" she asked, her eyes reflecting the sunset's glow. "What's that?" "That the most beautiful creations often begin with the simplest questions," she said. "And that love, real love, doesn't count years. It makes them count." As I held her close in the golden light of our shared achievement, I knew with absolute certainty that the years ahead, whether many or few, would be the richest of my life, not despite our age difference but because of everything it had taught us about what truly matters in love and life. The woman who had once asked if I would stay if she told me she was 48 had given me the greatest gift possible. A future built on honesty, a love unconstrained by convention, and the courage to build something lasting in a world obsessed with the temporary. And for that, I would stay forever. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.